Hello and welcome to This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside West Bloomfield Lakers head coach Tyrice Grice. Coach, coming off an impressive win on the road at Stoney Creek, 42-23 victory. And this was, while the scoreboard shows some distance there, this was a pretty even fight for a while in that game. Stoney Creek really gave your team its best, and I think we saw some things different than we've seen from many of the opponents so far this year, and adjustments had to be made. Where were those adjustments made in process to give the Lakers the edge on the road at Stoney Creek? Well,
that second quarter, we made some adjustments on our defensive front because they was trying to attack the middle, so we had to change our front a little bit. But they started off trying to milk the clock and control the clock, and that's why the score was 7-0 at the first quarter. But once our offense got going and once we got the ball, we was able to move down the field on them easily.
Having a running quarterback and having an offense that was so centered around the run-pass option, that being a little bit different than we've seen from many of the past couple opponents this season that were more of pocket presence and running the football up the gut. Did that provide a challenge to your defense at the first and the second level that was different than in past weeks?
Well, yes. Anytime you're dealing with a running quarterback, you got to account for that person, what they like to do. In our scheme, he was able to get outside of us, but we was able to make an adjustment to make certain that once he started rolling out, we got some guys on it. But he was effective in certain areas. But again, as far as running the ball, they like to roll out and so forth. So we was able to contain the quarterback, especially in that second quarter, third quarter. Fourth quarter was a little bit tougher. We had a lot of our backups our players in at that time, and that quarterback was able to run them quite a bit in that situation.
156 receiving yards for Samaj Morgan, but he was excellent in all three phases of the game. A hat trick for him, one touchdown on both offense, defense, and special teams. What was also impressive in your receiving core was the little things that they did up the field. The upfield blocking in particular set up a lot of big boom plays, both on receiving and the rushing game. For your team to have that kind of fundamental play, those intangible moves being made at this point in the season, especially with the challenging opponents ahead, how much of a benefit is that to your offense and really the way that this team can execute your game plans?
Well, it's important that we execute the game plan. That's something that we always pride ourselves in. And the guys do a great job blocking down the field. Samaj had 150 receiving yards, including a returning and a touchdown and a receiving touchdown. He did the hat trick. So he's a special kid. He's going to do a lot of things at the next level. We see it every day in practice, so we're not surprised. But every time he touched the ball, it's a threat. So we're looking forward to seeing him catch the ball, block down the field, and get us an interception or touchdown on defense. That's a good plus for us.
Another guy that had a nice game was DeAndre Hill, 2 receiving touchdowns himself. Coach Rise last week talked about the different element that having those quality tight ends on your offense brings to this offense, brings to your offensive schemes and those formations you're able to put out there to really put a wrinkle in this team. What does an effective offensive game from DeAndre Hill and from other tight ends on your squad as well bring to your offense and allow for you as a coach to add another element to your game plan against other teams?
Well, we like to run some tight end, so having Mr. Hill out there running that tight end position helps us in terms of our formations and what we like to do. But he's a matchup nightmare for a lot of teams, and we finally got him going offensively prior to the first 3 games. He was kind of getting back. He got injured during camp, so he was slowly getting his way back into shape, slowly getting back into the flow of our offense. Now that he's here, you're going to see a lot from him this going forward. That way he can offset Pippen and Samaj, and then have that 3-headed monster at the receiver spot, which could be very dangerous for defenses.
That offensive line had an excellent performance against a really tough defensive front in Stoney Creek. How did that change the way that your offense was able to be a little bit more dynamic on the road against a tough OAA opponent?
Well, as the season go along, as it moves forward, one of the areas that's always slow to respond or get better at is the offensive line. So we had our 3rd week, and you could see improvements week in and week out. And last week was a big jump from the weeks before in terms of how they block, know their assignments, and so forth. So as the season moves forward, you're going to see an area. That's the area that needs the most improvement, and we're hitting that stride right now.
Other areas of improvement, what are some of those notes you have for your players and your team following that first OAA-Red division game against, at that point, an undefeated Stoney Creek Cougars team?
Well, I think the kicking game. I think that's an area that we last week we was focusing on to make sure we get those extra points and work on our kicking game. So we was able to, one time the kicker was able to kick it in the back of the end zone. That was the first time he did that. So that's an improvement. But the kicking game, it has to be one on our side, because over the years the kicking game can hurt you or it can help you. So.
Well, tough game coming up this Friday at the Swamp. West Bloomfield plays Clarkston, 7 o'clock kickoff on Family Fun Night, 6:30 pregame, and the only way to really have a true family fun night is to pick up a W. We'll take a break, we'll come back, talk to a couple of players, and then we'll preview this rivalry matchup with the Clarkston Wolves. You're watching and listening to This Week in Laker Football.
Again, good protection for Nance. Throws down. He's got Samaj Morgan open at the 25. Samaj turns the corner at the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, West Bloomfield. Samaj Morgan.
Wake up, Greater West Bloomfield. Start your mornings with The Splash and tune in for The Splash Live. Get acquainted with people, places, and activities that are live, local, and for you. First thing in the morning, weekdays at 9:30 a.m. on our Civic Center TV YouTube page, or watch us live at Civic Center TV or on Facebook. The Splash Live, Greater West Bloomfield's live update show. Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft, joined with West Bloomfield defensive lineman Jonathan Gabriel on today's edition of the program. Jonathan, you come into this season kind of in a platoon on the opposite side of Brandon Davis-Swain at the defensive edge position with Stephen Fountain. For you, coming into this defense with the pedigree behind you that this defensive line has had in the last few years, what have you been able to learn coming up in this program from some of those guys and bring that to your game in this season where the Lakers defense looks like it's going to be an absolute problem on a statewide level?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to learn from the guys that we've had in the recent years. A lot of guys going to college, playing football. So, yeah, there's been a lot of stuff to watch and to learn from them.
Working alongside Brandon Davis-Swain, it really puts a two-headed monster on each edge of the defensive line, having a guy like Brandon, having a guy like you, and guys like Steven attacking the quarterback. So how do you guys work together in a way that makes that even tougher, getting in the backfield and really consolidating the pressure in the pocket for these quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have all three of us playing together. I think we're getting better at working together and forcing quarterbacks to go to each other. So if I run upfield, then someone else will come and get the quarterback. So yeah, we're learning. We're getting better at playing together.
It's great to see these guys play at a high level on the field and really have effective games. We've seen that from Jonathan. We've seen that from really all this defense, making those big plays, supporting the guys at the second and third level to make those tackles. And it's been very impressive to watch you guys play ball so far this season. But beyond game day, what are some of your favorite things to do, your favorite activities outside of football?
I really enjoy being outside, spending time outside with family especially. I'm also working hard in school, keeping my grades up. So, yeah.
All the things that define a student athlete. Jonathan, anything else that you'd like to say about this season, about working in tandem with this great defense we have here at West Bloomfield, or anything about this upcoming game against Clarkston? Tough game on Friday night.
Yeah, I just think we've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and I just think we're gonna play a good game, and we're gonna see how it goes.
Tough to run the ball against the defensive line as formidable as West Bloomfield, but you got the talent on Clarkston, Ethan Clark and the like. Even their quarterback, Michael Hine, likes to get on the ground and run a bit. We'll see how they match up against West Bloomfield's defensive line on Family Fun Night this Friday, 7 p.m. at West Bloomfield High School. Our coverage on CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports, as well as many other outlets, begins about 6:30 for the pregame show. 6 o'clock, you'll see this show this week in Laker football. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll take a break. We'll come back and then preview the upcoming matchup, the rivalry game this Friday at the Swamp with head coach Tyrice Grice. You're watching and listening to This Week in Laker Football.
Sets, takes snap, again high snap. They dish it into the backfield and caught for a loss. Nice job by West Bloomfield. And one more time, Kari Jackson. Taylor, quarterback, wants to throw into the end zone. Got a lot of pressure now. Looking for somebody downfield. He's going to have to keep it. Here come the Lakers, and he is swallowed up by Brandon Davis-Swain.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road. Mark your calendars for the 11th annual Family Fun Night at West Bloomfield High School. Stop by on Friday, September 16th at 5 p.m. for an evening of free, fun activities as we honor our military, police, and fire heroes. Plus, stick around to see Laker football take on Clarkston at 7 p.m. To find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit WBSD.org/community/Family Fun Night. Hey Laker fans, do you know a friend or neighbor that volunteers in Greater West Bloomfield? We would love to help you recognize them at the 51st Annual Michigan Week Awards. Countless members of the communities of Orchard Lake, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and West Bloomfield give their time and talent daily without regard for recognition. You can help recognize these individuals and organizations at our awards breakfast next year on May 12, 2023. Nominate your neighbor or organization starting January 28, 2023. Go to MichiganWeek.org for details.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside West Bloomfield Lakers head coach Tyrice Grice. Big game coming up on Friday night, 7 o'clock kickoff as you continue OAA-Red division play against the 2-1 Clarkston Wolves, coming in with a couple of impressive wins over the last couple of weeks. Southfield A&T down in the OAA, and then of course last week 45-35 victory. Tough win on the road at Rochester Adams. What do you know about this squad with their new head coach Justin Pinter taking over this year for the legendary Kurt Richardson, and the team they're putting forth this year with that 2-1 record so far?
Well, yes, they have a new coaching staff, but the same guys from last year. So the O-line coach is now the head coach. So he take pride in make sure that the O-line is tight. But Clarkston is one of those rivalry weeks for us. It's always a competitive game. The last two games, we went 1-1 and both went in overtime. So our expectation this week is going to be a tough game this week. Hard physical game. We expect that from Clarkston. But it's one of those games that, hey, you know when you play these guys, you got to make sure you're prepared, make sure you execute, but more importantly, make sure they're physically ready, mentally ready.
So how does that change the process that your team goes through, or if it does at all, for a week like this? Knowing you're going up against a team that's as competitive as Clarkston, it's that rivalry game. They know you, you know them. It's mano-a-mano out there talent-wise. Does that change that process at all for you, your coaching staff, and your players?
Well, it doesn't change how we prepare. We try to be consistent week in and week out in terms of our preparation. What does change is the mindset, the intensity of practice, the go-get-'em attitude. And if you're not ready and up for this game, I don't know what's going on in your head. But it's one of those games that as a coaching staff you look forward to, as a player you look forward to, and as a fan you're going to look forward to. So it's one of those games that anything can happen. It's all about execution because they're a great team and someone that we knew on our schedule they're going to have a well-balanced coach team this year.
Going up against a team like Clarkston, particularly that offense, another quarterback that's able to be mobile with the ball. Michael Hine last week over 100 yards rushing against Rochester Adams, as well as over 100 yards plus in the air. And then you got Ethan Clark, 3,000 plus career rushing yards at Clarkston. A great performance last week on the road as well. How does going up against the team last week in Stoney Creek with similar talent at those two key positions with Justin Taylor and then guys in the backfield like Fogler, help to warm your team up to the kind of competition they're going to see under center and in the backfield this week?
Well, Ethan Clark is the horse of their team, and you stop Ethan, you stop their offense. So Ethan's one of those guys that's been year in year out really play us hard. Last year, for example, he really ran the ball against us, has a few passes for touchdowns. So you got to know where Ethan is at all times. So he's one of those go-to guys. So we're looking forward to that. And they got a strong offensive line headed by Dillinger, who's going to Michigan State. So we feel that they're going to run behind him quite a bit. So we got to match our intensity with their intensity, but we got some players as well that can match those guys as well.
And defensively, this team also was excellent. Cole Jarvis had a really nice game last week in the secondary for Clarkston. What does your team have to do this week to come back out and have a similar performance, especially in those skill positions, the relationship between Rick and his wide receivers, to make this game another successful game in the air in particular for your team?
Well, we don't want to share too much of our game plan on the air right now, but there's some things we're going to do to try to exploit them. Clarkston's been giving up a lot of points the last few games, so we went back and we're going to go back and really watch their film and see what the other teams have done in terms of executing their game plan. But we want to go into this game knowing exactly what they like to do and try to execute it. But I think this team that we have today with Samaj Morgan, Trey Hill, Rick, are we very explosive offense? So the question is going to be, can they stop us? So it's just a matter of if we execute and do the things we need to do, we can come out strong in this game.
Game against Clarkston, 7 o'clock kickoff this Friday at West Bloomfield High School. You talk about shutting down Ethan Clark last week in Rochester at Rochester Adams in that 45-35 victory. 22 carries for the running back for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is going to be a key. On the defensive line side last week, you saw kind of a couple of things happen against Stoney Creek, where the pressure was still very much there in the backfield, but Stoney Creek's able to kind of open up that next level by having that pressure in the backfield and a skilled quarterback that can kind of get out of the pocket and make some plays. For your team defensively, how you refocus to keep that aggression but productive on the defensive line and protect the middle against a team like Clarkston likes to use the middle to their advantage?
Well, we got some strength in the middle. Last week we played Stoney Creek. They tried to attack us in the middle. And we were able to make some adjustments to accommodate that. So going in this year, we got so many things in our toolbox that we can use to start certain teams. So we'll be able to pull out some toolbox to make some adjustments if they start to attack us more in the middle. But last week against Stoney Creek, this is a totally different style of offense, totally different style of players. They utilize their quarterback a little bit more at Clarkston. And they have a stronger offensive line. So we'll see what the matchup's going to look like in terms of their receivers. But they'll run first team. So if we can stop the run, that's what we want to do, is try to force them to pass more. And if they get them to pass more, that's to our advantage.
We'll see what happens on Friday night. Kickoff is 7 o'clock against the Clarkston Wolves. Our pregame begins about 6 with This Week in Laker Football, followed by the Laker pregame show at 6:30. Coach, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. That is This Week in Laker Football. Again, tune in on Friday night, West Bloomfield versus Clarkston. Family fun night. The festivities begin at West Bloomfield High School long before kickoff. So come on down and join everybody here at West Bloomfield High School for Family Fun Night and celebrate 50 years, if you can believe it, 50 years of West Bloomfield High School. And again, our kickoff coverage begins at 6:30 with the Laker pregame show and the kickoff of the Clarkston Wolves coming in to play the West Bloomfield Lakers at the Swamp at 7 o'clock. For Head Coach Tyrice Grice and the entire West Bloomfield football team and our team at Civic Center TV, I'm Tyler Kieft, thanking you for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football.